The NFL draft is right around the corner, and every coach, every GM, every fan right now is just hoping that their team gets it right and they draft that guy, right, to really put them over the edge. But let's think about this from the players' perspective, right? More than 1 million boys play high school football. Only 70,000 of them go on to play in college. And then each year, 254 of them go to the NFL, where there's only 352 starting jobs available on a weekly basis. In other words, for players in the NFL who are not a superstar, the draft is like a butt-puckering anxiety trip because their replacement could soon be arriving. So let's take a look at a few guys who have the most to lose post-NFL draft. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Today we're going to be talking about a few players who really have a lot to lose after the NFL draft, right? They're really paying attention on draft night because right now the role that they have with their teams are pretty sweet. But do they bring in a stud rookie to take away some of the spotlight? It's entirely possible. And we got 4 guys we're talking about today that are really going to be paying close attention to the NFL draft. If they're not impacted by the NFL draft, these are definite names that we will be talking about more in the coming weeks and the coming months. Now, we're not going to waste a whole lot of time. We're kicking it right off, and we're going to start off with Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos. And why Melvin Gordon? Well, Phillip Lindsay, he's now gone. As of right now, Melvin Gordon is in line for huge touches. I mean, get ready for the return of Courtland Sutton. That should only help draw defenders outside of the box because that'll give them what? Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant. Enough to keep the box not crowded, if you know what I mean. Now, one of the biggest questions is Drew Lock. Is he under center or is he not under center for the Broncos here in 2021? But really, I don't think that'll affect Gordon as much as the draft possibly could. A running back with any draft capital in Denver could eat into a huge chunk of touches here this year. Now, does that make Melvin Gordon not usable? No, not at all. I mean, he was still running back 13 last year in Denver with Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman involved, who both got a combined 172 touches. However, if nothing else changes, Gordon could see close to 275 touches and give him that top 10 potential. Gordon isn't overly efficient. I mean, he needs that volume, right? He relies on big volume and touchdowns. But right now, the consensus has him at running back 22. I mean, they must be on some of that good stuff. You know what I mean? As of right now, I take Melvin Gordon over James Robinson, and that could sound totally crazy, but I'll explain that in a later video. But a lot could change during the NFL draft. What if a early running back is drafted to Denver? That's going to take away a few of those bulk touches that could be going the way, as of right now, to Melvin Gordon. So really pay attention to the Denver Broncos on draft day. They spent any draft capital on a running back, Melvin Gordon takes a hit. What about another running back? What about Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins? And we saw it last year, right? I mean, Miami liked to use Myles Gaskin when he was healthy in 2020. Health was the biggest issue, the biggest concern. But in 6 of the 10 games that he played, he saw at least 18 touches. Now, yes, I know, I pay attention to the waiver wire, to the transactions in the NFL. I realize they went out and added Malcolm Brown, and they still have Salvon Ahmed. But your next question should be, Jake, are you worried about Malcolm Brown or Salvon Ahmed? As of right now, no, I'm not. I'm more worried about the 2 first-round picks that Miami has because if they go running back, you might as well kiss Myles Gaskin goodbye. With those 2 first-round picks, it could get a little bit crazy here. They could go crazy on offense and go with a top wide receiver or a top running back at the number 6 or 18 pick. A Najee Harris going to Miami could be super interesting at number 18 for the upstart Dolphins, and that would absolutely kill Myles Gaskin. Now, as of right now, you have the 12th highest scoring running back on a per-game basis, of course, with Myles Gaskin in Miami. A full season could lead to a solid mid running back too. No, this guy isn't a top 10 guy, but he's definitely a top 24 guy. He could be a 5th round pick at running back, which allows you to kind of grab an early wide receiver or tight end and still have that running back depth that you need. Fingers crossed, though. If they draft an early running back in Miami, no bueno for Mr. Myles Gaskin. Something to pay attention to here during the NFL draft. What about his teammate, though, Devonte Parker? I mean, the same can be said for him, too, right? I mean, he's benefited the past couple years from being one of the only shows in town when it comes to the passing game in Miami. Now, we mentioned they added Will Fuller, But what happens if Miami decides to get a little freaky and go out there and draft maybe a Devonta Smith? I mean, we know he's got chemistry with Tua, right? Coming from Alabama. I mean, could they really pass on him? If they don't and they draft him, that's really going to eat into the potential target share of one Devonte Parker. Now, we've yet to see Will Fuller play an entire season, without the help of PEDs anyway. So him alone, I think, helps Parker some to take away some of that defensive attention. But adding another top wide receiver is going to be no good for Mr. Devonte Parker. Definitely something to pay attention to. Now, is it really just the Devonte Parker issue? No, it's a little bit of Tua too, right? Tua isn't really the type of NFL quarterback that can feed 3 to 4 pass catching weapons and make them all fantasy football viable. They will be a better NFL team, but fantasy wise, it's going to be a headache every single week trying to figure it out. Devonte Parker needs 100 plus targets to be fantasy football viable. Does he get that if they add another alpha wide receiver? I just don't see it. That's definitely something I'm going to be paying attention to for the Miami Dolphins here, especially round 1 of the NFL draft. Lastly, what about another wide receiver? Can we talk about T. Higgins here for a second? Now, I've already talked about T. Higgins here in the offseason. He's one of my favorite pre-draft wide receivers. I mean, why? No more A.J. Green, so that's going to free up 100 plus targets. And some of that's, probably going to go the way of one T. Higgins, which would be absolutely great. Higgins was a top 30 wide receiver in fantasy football and only had Joe Burrow for like 10 games. He finished the year with 908 yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie. And he was completely overshadowed by another rookie wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. Now, we don't expect them to all of a sudden be a playoff team by any means there in Cincinnati, and they play in a very high-scoring division. They're going to have to score a lot of points on a weekly basis. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot again, and T. Higgins could definitely be somebody who could be a main beneficiary of that. But then there's the whole number 5 overall pick kind of looming over this team. They need to go offensive line. They should go offensive line. But reuniting Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase could be super tempting, and the rumors are a-swirling right now in Cincinnati. What if maybe a Kyle Pitts? What if Kyle Pitts is sitting there? Do they pass on both Chase and Pitts? It's going to be hard for them to do so. Is it the smartest move to pass? Probably. Really, offensive line and protecting Joe Burrow should be option number 1, but you just never know what's going to happen in the NFL draft. Any addition in this offense of another pass-catching weapon, especially the likes of a Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, is going to hurt the value of T. Higgins. I'm watching this one super close because as of right now, T. Higgins is kind of borderline a must-have for me in 2021. I'm watching the NFL draft, though, because I don't want added depth at pass-catching positions there in Cincinnati. Not this year. Love me some T. Higgins. Please go offensive line in Cincinnati. But those are only a few guys that we're really paying attention to here during the NFL draft. Do yourself a favor. If you're really into fantasy football and you really want to get better, this is the time to start studying. Go look at the depth charts of a few teams. Look at some of the names that you really like. Kind of find out what those teams need to do during the draft to either hurt their value or make their value go up. That's what's going to help you be better. You're preparing early, right? You want to understand these situations. There's a lot of names out there that you may not recognize. If you don't, head over to Headliner U, our other channel. It focuses on college football, and there's a lot of scouting reports, pro day reviews for some of these prospects to maybe help you understand where they're coming from, what they have to bring to the team that you're really focusing on here this offseason. That's what it's all about, is covering it from A to Z, and we're going to do that for you. Do me a favor, hit that like button, consider subscribing to the channel. We greatly appreciate any and all support here. I mean, especially in the offseason, right? You see the view numbers. They really go down in the offseason, but that's okay. We're here for everybody all year long, and we love to be interactive. Leave a comment down below. If you do, it's the offseason. We do our dangest to go down there and answer every single one of those on every single video. We love to do it when we possibly can, so make sure you take advantage of it and do it now. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later.